Welcome back, everybody, to the Off Base Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Beneke-Critchlow, and I am joined by
Todd.
Todd brings that enthusiasm every single time that I know you guys just are dying to hear at home on the radio.
Hey, I'm losing my voice today.
But anyways, this special midweek episode that'll be released Wednesday at noon will be a NBA preview episode. So please share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, wherever the hell you share it with. Please help make sure people listen to it. YouTube. It'll be on YouTube.
I have a question. Why are you telling people it's going to be released on Wednesday at noon when the only two people are going to know that is me and you?
Oh, because there will be people who come back and listen to it after the fact. And then
you didn't say Wednesday the 18th, October 18th. You just said Wednesday.
On the episode, it tells you what day it was released.
Okay.
I'm just making it clear that it was Wednesday at noon, shortly before tip-off of the NBA season, as opposed to releasing it when it was recorded Sunday afternoon, shortly after Todd's Bears shanked a makeable field goal in overtime to then lose their game because the Dolphins kicker actually did it for the brand and hit home his game winner.
I'm going to steal Alex Brown's line. Kickers, go kill yourself.
Hey, man, don't insult the brand. Don't insult the brand. Anyways, so as always, subscribe, rate, review. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, CastBox, Amazon, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere pretty much the podcasts are. You can find us, like I said, post on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube at JASONBANICKI. You can follow the Off Base Sports Facebook page. We got a Twitter, Off Base Sports 1. Instagram, Off Base Sports. I don't post on there as much as I should. But there was some really fun Derek Lewis stuff I posted this week there. Probably posted there more than my real Instagram. That's probably a good thing. I don't have enough narcissism in me. Or at least I just know I'm fat and ugly and nobody wants to look at me to post much on Instagram. Take your pick, however you view it. Anyways, so like I said, share it, help us grow our audience. Like I said, on my next regular episode, I'll have a special announcement on a new sponsor. Might be MyBookie AG, but I'm just going to leak that out there. Anyways, so this will be our NBA preview episode for the 2018-2019 NBA season. We're going to start out west, and I'm going to let Todd go through where he sees the divisions going, who he sees making the playoffs, and then I'll give you mine, and then we'll have any discussion about specific teams that we want from there. Reed, you might hear a lot about the Bulls when we get to the East.
All right, well, I'm going to start with the Pacific Division. That's the Clippers, Lakers, Suns, Kings, and Warriors. Out of that, I've only got one making the playoffs, and that's the Warriors. Kings, they better hope to God their 5 young stars gel together, or if they don't gel, at least some of them grow up and actually become NBA players. If not, I think Vlade Divac needs to go. He probably needs to go anyway, but...
Why are you hating on Vlade? Vlade gets to make 0 decisions on that team as a GM. He is a figurehead of all figureheads. So Vivic, or whatever the owner's name is, he's the guy making all the terrible decisions. He's like, oh, I like Buddy Hield. He's Steph Curry 2.0. So I'm going to trade for him. He's awful.
Mm-hmm. Well, the next one we look at is the Suns. I have them out of the playoffs, but I think this is going to be a building year for them. I think they're going to get better.
You mean the team that literally just fired their GM a week ago?
Yes, I actually do.
You think they're making progress?
Yes.
Do they think they're actually making progress so much?
I think they are. That's why they got rid of the GM.
If you think you're finally making progress, why would you fire the guy who helped you make the progress?
Just because he got lucky and backed into some talent doesn't mean he's a good GM.
I'm just saying. I don't think they're as close as you think they are.
Well, I think they're going to get better. I don't think they're going to be at the very bottom. I think they're start moving their way towards the playoffs. I think with Ayton, Booker, Bridges, Jackson, if they can come together and actually play as a team and grow together, I mean, they'll go get better. I mean, there's way too many teams that don't have that type of talent below them.
Well,
now.
Potential talent.
Potential, yes.
Draft picks do not equate to talent. On the only proven talent you have on this team is Booker, Ariza, and 900-year-old Tyson Chandler that they would love to trade any day now. And I think they have Ryan Anderson now, too.
Yes, they do. Yes,
up their front court rotation.
You said Ariza, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And Ryan Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I added that in there. So I see the Pacific a little different than you.
Okay.
I think it's, in order, I'm going to have the Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, Suns, Kings. I'm not putting a LeBron James team out of the playoffs. Even in the West, LeBron James is going to get that Lakers squad into the playoffs. I think there's enough talent there. He's good enough. They're going, and of course the Warriors are going. That's the only two. I think the Clippers are a clear third. I think they've got talent. I think they're just going to miss the playoffs. I think they'll be about 10th or 11th, just because the West is that competitive.
I don't see any talent on the Clippers. I see a lot of guys to where they potentially got guys who are overaged or really young, so they can have a chance for that number 1 pick.
I think you're way off on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're discounting the point guard. It's always been a really good sixth man, a good scorer as well. And then they've got the main piece back in their the Blake Griffin trade. I'm drawing a complete blank on the roster, but they're better than you think they are.
Well, I want to go back to the Lakers. This was the team I had the hardest point, because either going to go good for them and they'll make the playoffs, or this thing's going to explode by January, because you have explosive pieces in there. You got James, but then you added Rondo, Stevenson, Beasley, and McGee. Oh. If they don't play, that's not going to be good. And if they do play, they're stifling the younger talent from growing too.
I think they're not going to be playing large minutes. I think they are going to play. I think they're going to play to help keep LeBron's minutes down as well. I don't think they're going to be trying to play LeBron 40-some minutes, 40, 42 minutes like the Cavs were. Their goal is different this year than, say, the Cavs has been with LeBron, since he was actually kind of nice enough to sign a 4-year deal or 3+1 with him. Which is really a 4 by the time he's his age. He's not going to turn down that last year, that contract, most likely. But so he gave them some time to let those guys develop, which he never did with Cleveland. He kind of held Cleveland hostage. But he's also, I think they're going to manage his minutes better, knowing that he's 33, that he's played a ton of games, that it's time for him to just take some downtime and throttle back. And they're going to let these guys develop, but they're also going to play guys who can play winning basketball.
Right. So you're one LeVar Ball opening his mouth from exploiting that team too.
I mean, you are. However, pretty much every news outlet has cut LeVar Ball off. They're like, we're just done with the show. Like, we don't care anymore. It was fun for a little bit. Everybody's bored of you, so you're not even making us ratings. We're good. So I think that fear is over. But again, I think any team that has LeBron, even in the West, is a lock for the playoffs.
That was the bubble. I went with a different team, which we'll get to later.
I think the Kings and the Suns are going to absolutely be two of the worst teams in basketball still.
No. Well, as I have them Suns coming up if the talent pulls out, but I agree with the Kings, as we said. The Warriors, I don't really want to talk about the Warriors. I mean, it's just unfair. They added DeMarcus Cousins for a bucket of basketballs.
Well, on the other hand, he's still coming off an Achilles tear, and we've never seen somebody come back and be the same player. So it's great to say, well, they've got 5 All-Stars, and he's this guy, and he's out there shooting flat-footed threes and draining them like it's nothing. Well, that's great. You're not going to shoot flat-footed threes in the game unguarded. I don't care how well you do that in real life. Most NBA players can do that.
Right. But how much do they really need DeMarcus Cousins to actually show up and do? I mean, they're going to need him to rebound, and they're going to need him to play some defense. But I know that's not his biggest part.
Particularly the last one is not something he's historically done well.
But offensively, what do they really need out of him?
But the question is if he doesn't get his bounce back from his Achilles tear, which is usually the biggest thing that happens, you don't get your explosion back on your jump, then his rebounding is going to be way down too. I'm not saying he's still going to be better than any center they've had.
Correct.
But to pretend that he's even close to being an all-star, like everybody keeps talking, 5 All-Stars, he's not that guy anymore.
He's not going to be on the All-Star team because he's not going to be back to December, January. So, I mean, he's not going to get to the All-Star game anyway as a Warrior. But if he's half himself, he's still better than any center they had.
True. And again, I've got him winning the championship this year other than something totally, completely unforeseen. So we'll move on to the Southwest Division.
Okay. You want to go first?
No, you keep going first.
All right. That's the Rockets, Spurs, Mavs, and Pelicans I have in from this division. The only one on the out I have is Grizzlies.
So you went with one extra in from this division because I don't think the Mavs are quite there. I think they're better. I think Doncic actually brings an element they need, and I think it'll help
Smith
take some pressure off of Smith and Dirk. Mm-hmm. And you're talking probably his last year in the league, Dirk, so we should all enjoy our farewell tour of Dirk while we can. But I've got Rockets. I got the Spurs being better than people think, even with DeJounte Murray out, tearing his ACL. I still think with DeRozan and Aldridge, they're going to be better than you think. They're the Spurs.
I mean, it's Pop. I mean, he's going to get them there
to 50 wins.
And then, I mean, if they get healthy, the 3 guard or 2 of the guards, one's out for the year. But if the other 2 guards come back, I'm in agreement with you. I wasn't falling in for that trap like some people would like to.
I think the Pelicans will be third. They could be second, though, easily. I think people forget how good that combination of Drew Holiday, Mirotic, and Anthony Davis played together. Like, they played really well together. I mean, they won't have playoff Rondo, but I don't think they're going to miss playoff Rondo either.
I think they picked up somebody that people overlook with the addition of Julius Randolph. I think that's a pretty good pick. Randall,
not Randolph.
Okay, I can't read my own handwriting, but I think that was kind of a sleeper pickup for them that people are overlooking there because he's going to provide some extra oomph.
Well, and he can play the 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. He's going to give them just another guy who can score and get some rebounds on that second unit particularly. And so that gives you a really good 3 big rotation with him, Mirotic, and Davis.
Mm-hmm. So the only thing that scares me, again, really no guard play outside of Drew Holiday.
I mean, each one more is a pretty solid defensive player who can get you some buckets.
Nobody that scares you. I mean, nobody else that scares you.
Right, but I think they'll be able to add a veteran, wing player come trade deadline. Wouldn't be surprised that, them and the Bulls have been old hats at trading. I could easily see Justin Holiday getting traded there for a second-round pick come January, February, if they're contending and the Bulls aren't, which we'll get to that later. But
what's your read on the Grizzlies? My fear is their top 3 big money guys, not one of them can stay healthy.
That's a problem. Their age is a problem. They're a poorly constructed team. They signed Chandler Parsons trying to get back to the playoffs when he was a guy who was always an injury issue anyways. And it's instead of doing what they should have done is just blow it up and rebuild it. Now they're going to have a lot of money tied up, but still be bad, which may work into their favor because then as they start to get better and some of these young picks mature, then they'll have a ton of money come off the books and maybe be able to add a free agent or two. And yeah, again, Marc Gasol will be somebody you can trade and get something for. Still, it won't be super valuable, but it could be a young player that's a high upside pick or a protected first round
I don't think
pick.
he wants going right now. I'm pretty sure he has a no trade clause.
I don't think he does because they talk about trading him all the time. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about trading him, but yeah, I don't think he wants to go anywhere. Just and Connolly's another guy. If he could stay healthy, you could probably trade him, but he doesn't want to go anywhere either. So and again, unless they fall way out of contention, they've shown zero inclination to blow that up. Mm-hmm. So they just kind of ride it out. I think Jackson that they drafted though will be a nice piece for them and will mold well.
Right,
but they've still got a long way to go.
So what's your take on the Rockets this year? I have them coming back to the pack a little bit. I may have them 2, possibly even a 3 seat this year.
Yeah, as I say, it really depends on how some things break for him. It depends on how Melo fits in being the third option at best. Depends on what happens with the Jimmy Butler situation. There are still players in that potentially. Mm. They need to go out and get them a backup point guard at some point. Chris Paul will get hurt, and you can't count on James Harden or Eric Gordon being your backup point guard come the playoffs. We saw what happened in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals last year when they did that. Right. So you have to have a better insurance policy, and I don't care who it is, but you got to find somebody to be that guy. Doesn't have to be somebody great, but it just has to be somebody serviceable.
I also think they'll take the effect of losing Trevor Reeves and was it Lou? You know who I'm
Luke
talking.
Muabamonte.
Yeah, there you go.
And I didn't say that even close right, nor did I try to.
But those 2 defensive people coming off the bench for them, you're starting to go back to the D'Antoni way there of offense, and because Melo's not going to play any defense.
No, there's definitely some issues with it, and that's part of why they don't want to trade P.J. Tucker and any potential Butler trade. Like, this is our only really versatile defender we have left. We're not just giving up all of our defense, and we still have to have some semblance of a bench, so they can't give up too much. So I don't know. We'll like I said, a lot of how their season will turn out will depend on what happens with Butler and if they get involved or if they don't. The later it drags into the season, then the lower Butler's value becomes.
Right.
So that's always going to be an issue for the Timberwolves.
But what's the $20 million they can move off their roster to get him in? I can't believe PJ Tucker's making that type of money.
It would have been Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker, and that would have fit in the slot. But I think they want to do something a little different. So
okay, we'll see.
But if Clint Capella plays better this year too, then with him and Paul and Harden and just even Melo being your second unit guy, like, hey, we're not going to start you, but come in off the bench at stretch 4 and just gun away, man. Just go nuts. And again, their second units are different. Talking first and second units in the NBA isn't quite like it used to be where they made wholesale switches anyways. A lot of times you're staggering your minutes and try not to take your playmakers off. And then in D'Antoni, that's even more important.
Yeah.
You know, because he always wants to have at least one competent ball handler. And again, with no true backup point guard, that becomes an issue.
Okay.
But again, Rockets, Spurs, Pelicans out of there. So that gives me 5, which means I'm going to have 3 out of the Northwest. What does your Northwest division look like?
Well, again, I'm at 5-2. I have 3 coming in. My 3 going in are the Jazz, OKC, and the Blazers making it back. I have the Timberwolves out because I have no idea what's going on. Even if Jimmy Butler's there, I just can't see that team melding together. And then the Nuggets, I have them out because I don't trust Porter playing this year much. And they were good last year, but with Porter, it would push them over, and maybe I'd have to knock somebody else out. But with him iffy, I can't really put them in the playoffs.
And so those are the exact same 3 teams I put in: the Thunder, the Trailblazers, and the Jazz. I had the Nuggets being my first team out again for the 3rd year in a row. Get to be a rough life to be a Nuggets fan and also just on the Nuggets staff. I even made a note that I do have, at some point, the Timberwolves are going to trade Butler. There's just no way around it. They're going to have to do that, and when they do that, that team is so bad defensively, there's no hope. I mean, no amount of Derrick Rose looking better in the preseason is going to fix that.
And this is where my number 2 seat comes in. I actually think OKC, if Westbrook gets healthy quickly, I don't know how long they plan on having him out, but him healthy, adding Dennis Schroeder as another scorer.
Your mic closer.
And adding Noel just to rebound for them, I think it gives them a pretty solid 8-9 deep there. And I think they can squeeze past to Houston. I think also with Houston coming back down to me.
I was going to say, I didn't necessarily look at seeding. But yeah, they'll easily, with the tweaks they made, with losing Carmelo, I think that will help a lot of chemistry stuff. I think Nerlens Noel was a genius signing for that team, to give them another big that can rebound and defend if he's engaged. And then, of course, he's going to want to be. He's going to want to at some point get some security out of this after what he turned down and what he whiffed on completely.
Yeah.
So he's going to look a little rough there. So like I said, yeah, that's the way the West kind of shakes out for me. I'm not, it's nothing surprising. I do have, in this case, the Timberwolves that were in last year out, and I have the Lakers taking their place. Sounds like you have the Mavs taking the Timberwolves' place. Because that's a amazing situation right now, where you have your star player coming in and just absolutely calling out the GM and coach in a practice when he shows up for his very first practice, and just also calling out the next 2 best players on the team for just not being engaged or progressing like they should, or not putting in enough effort, not having the heart to be as good as they should. It's just an amazing situation, and if you don't enjoy it, I just can't help you. There's no saving you in this world. So I think we'll move on to the East now, because I have a hunch I'll spend a little more time on the East.
Well, I would suggest we do the Central last, so I'm going to start with the Atlantic Division.
I'm fine with that on both premises there.
Okay. I got the Raptors in. I have Boston. I got 76ers in. And then New York, I got you sitting at home crying, both of your teams.
Same. I have the Celtics, Sixers, Raptors in, Nets, and Knicks out. The Knicks, I don't think, are trying to go anywhere this year. I think they're going to see a lot more of what they got in Ntilikina and Knox with the Alabaster Unicorn on the shelf for the year. So I think they're going to take a year developmental wise and see what they got. They'll let Tim Hardaway get away, but that's not going to get them into anywhere near playoffs. I don't think they want to be. I think they're going to take full advantage of actually having their own first round picks, having an injury that allows them to acquire one more piece to put with. Because if Knox ends up being half as good as he looked in Summer League and preseason with Porzingis, that's a dynamic duo in the front court. And you add one more piece with that, with Ntilikina being just a facilitator and defender. That's a pretty good young nucleus that they suddenly have. That I think they don't appreciate as much of what they should.
Do you expect any trouble in Boston with Hayward coming back, trying to get playing time, and then Terry Rozier not getting paid?
I see zero issues with any of this.
Okay.
Because Brad Stevenson is that good of a coach. None of these guys are going to play more than probably 32, 34 minutes a game. So there's going to be plenty of minutes to go around. Rozier wasn't up for a contract yet, so he's not supposed to get paid.
Well,
I think you're thinking of Marcus Smart that didn't get paid as much.
No. I'm talking to Rozier. He's already talking about his contract for after this year. And when he inquired about it, they said they weren't going to pay him the $20 million per year because he's not a starting point guard.
Yeah.
And he kind of threw his little hissy fit about that.
Yeah, well, guess what? At this point, you're kind of the third guard in that rotation anyways, behind Kyrie and Marcus Smart. So, great you had a decent playoffs. Not a great playoffs, a decent playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're not getting $20 million a year out of the Celtics. There's at some point, there are only so many dollars to go around.
Right.
You know, they've already got a bunch of money in Hayward. They're going to have to put a bunch of money in Irving. And then you've got Brown and Tatum coming up shortly after that. Like, you have to budget.
Right.
Sorry, Terry Rozier. No, I don't think that'll be a problem, though. I think Brad Stevens manages that well. He's going to give Rozier all the opportunities he needs to prove his value to some other team that can afford to pay him. Yeah, they'll be fine.
Right. And even though I had the Raptors and Sixers in, I have questions on both of them. 76ers, as it always will be until they can prove they can stay healthy, is their health. I'm talking Fultz, Embiid, and Simmons. All three of them got to stay healthy.
Oh, 100%. But I think last year we've seen them take that step even without Fultz. And Fultz has looked decent in the preseason. Still not what he should have been.
Right.
And Brian Colangelo, that just looks worse and worse for you every day. Particularly when it leaked out as you were getting fired that nobody else in the front office wanted to draft him after they saw him start having shooting woes before the draft.
Ooh.
Brian Colangelo.
Oh.
Not only that, you traded away what is likely to be a top 2 or 3 pick this year to move up 2 spots to get him. Brian Colangelo, your wife's burner accounts probably saved you from being one of the most hated men in Philadelphia because people will forget that you traded that Kings pick to the Celtics next year when the Celtics have another top 3 lottery pick to add to their roster. Another reason why Terry Rozier is not getting $20 million because unless the Kings win the lottery, that pick goes to the Celtics. If the Kings win the lottery, then they get the Sixers pick, which isn't as valuable. But
right. And just because you brought up the burner accounts, the Sixers are now dealing with another burner account situation.
Well, that's a little different, though. This isn't your GM's wife.
Well, I understand
out there
that.
Leaking team inside information.
But GM Elton Brand had to go out and apologize for it. It's still funny, though. Come on.
Right. I mean, it's not Kevin Durant, burner account funny, but it's funny nonetheless.
And the Raptors, the question I have there is new head coach and Kawhi Leonard's health. Those are 2 big aspects that could actually drop them all the way out of the playoffs, too.
I don't see them necessarily falling all the way out of the playoffs. The East just isn't that good. So even, just Kyle Lowry and OG Anunoby in their center. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, I know. Oh.
Not Vucevic. Valanciunas.
Yeah.
Is there. So I think that gets them in. They have a couple other solid pieces. So and Kawhi's looked good in the preseason, so I don't necessarily have some concerns about that. You do have to start to wonder how mentally tough he is. That's going to become a question. But it'll be interesting to see. I don't necessarily view that as a high risk of missing the playoffs because the East is just that bad. Like, I really, really had to struggle to pick an 8th team to get in because that's how bad the East is.
I agree with that. But I was in the same bubble park, and I think when we get to the Southeast, you'll see where I had to stretch to get the 8th team.
You'll see where I stretch for my 8th team and how I justified making them my 8th team. So let's start with the Southeast then.
All right, I've got 3 in. I've got the Hornets in. I've got the Wizards in, and I've got the Heat in.
Wow, you went to 3 from there?
Yep,
wow, I got generous.
I got Orlando and the Hawks both dumpster fires because they're trying for the number 1 seats or the number 1 pick.
The only downside is this is the first year of that new lottery, so there's not as much incentive to be that bad. I think the Hawks are just that bad because they've had to rebuild from scratch.
I mean, there's no one on that team that scares anything out of anybody.
Again, but they're in year 2 of the rebuild. That's where they should be.
Right.
That's exactly where you should be in that stage. The Magic, on the other hand, are on like year 7 of the rebuild and nowhere closer to having any strategy because they keep acquiring centers, even though their top pick this year was a center. So I don't know what their strategy is.
And for Orlando, I feel really bad for you. Timothy Mozgov, $16 million on your budget this year. And Nikola...
But it saved you $1 million over the other bad center you had.
Was it Vucevic?
No, not Vucevic, the one they traded to Charlotte.
No, I'm trying to get Nikolai. I'm trying to see the other one.
Vucevic, yeah.
Yeah, he's making $13 million, and they're both behind Mbamba.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they are now, but again, Mozgov was a cheaper alternative to the guy they traded, Bismarck Biyombo, that they traded to the Hornets. So
Yeah.
In that division, I only have two going. I only have the Wizards and the Heat. I have the Heat making it just because they trade for Jimmy Butler. I'm calling that somehow they just decide to give up that unprotected pick.
I have them in out with or without Butler, but Butler moves them up the list, but I have them in either way.
I mean, they did make it last year, and it's pretty much the same team, so it's hard to bump them. They're not young enough to have a lot of leaps forward coming, so they don't really have that going for them. Dwayne Wade for a full season, but he's also another year older. This is probably his last season in the NBA.
Should have took the $20 million China money.
Yeah, that'll be there next year for him if he really wants it. That ain't going anywhere. I think he wanted one last full season with the Heat to say get his NBA goodbye. I have the Hornets as the first team out.
Okay.
I still think they're not good enough shooting at all. I think they may have to make that tough decision at some point. Do we trade Kemba Walker? I know they're pretty adverse to it. I know their GM is a moron, so Mitch Kupchak.
Ooh, wow. I give him props for getting Kupchak there.
Why? He's the guy who gave $150 million to Timothy Mozgov, and well, dang.
I think my problem with that is I believe that he was told to give all those money to the other people. I don't know if he made that ruling. That might have been a bus making that call.
That was 100% him trying to make LA relevant again quicker because he didn't want to struggle through a rebuild. So no, I have no faith in him. But you've got a team, I think, with Walker and Batum.
Well, I think Walker's kind of played the two this year, to be honest. I think Parker's going to be...
Oh, God, no.
That's what I actually believe. That's what I think Parker's going to be the starting point guard, and you're going to have Walker at the two.
Not a chance. 900-year-old Tony Parker is not starting in the NBA.
Okay, if he doesn't start, I bet that lineup's on the floor together for...
And Parker will still be off the ball. You are not turning over lead guard duty over Kemba Walker to Tony Parker. Walker is just not big enough. Tony Parker does not have anything left in the tank, and they gave him 2 years. Thank you again, Mitch Kupchak, for being Mitch Kupchak. You wanted to sign a name instead of somebody who could actually be productive. You almost are the worst GM in the NBA. Almost. But we'll get to the worst here in a minute. It's not there yet.
And the Wizards, I mean, by default, I had to get them in there because I looked at the rest of the East.
Well, somebody has to win that division, right?
Yeah.
And they do have John Wall and Bradley Beal on Otto Porter, right?
Yeah, but then they add Dwight Howard to the locker room. And
Dwight Howard can only be so bad, right?
On the floor. I don't know what the hell he could do in the locker room. John Wall doesn't seem to be a very nice guy in the locker room either. There might be fisticuffs in the hell locker room every game.
It still beats when Gilbert Arenas was there and guns got pulled out in the locker room. So that's an improvement for the Wizards. They're just having fights, not shootings.
And then we have the, don't forget, you have the I belong here because my daddy's a head coach guard that's on the team, Austin Rivers. Reason why Wizards can't really do anything because they're paying Austin Rivers $12 million. Ian Mahinmi, okay, $16 million, and Otto Porter fucking $26 million. That's why you can't go out and get anybody.
Well, but Rivers and Mahinmi come off the books this year, and they traded away equally bad contracts for him. So it wasn't like they traded, anything of value to get them. They traded garbage for garbage. And again, Austin Rivers getting traded was straight up a power play by Jerry West in Clipperland, where he's like, guess what, Doc? You're no longer the captain. I'm the captain now. Straight up power play. But yeah, again, I mean, they're not well built. The East is a full-fledged dumpster fire outside of 3 teams. I'll go 4. I'll say 4 teams. And we'll get to the 4th in the Central Division here shortly. But yeah, I mean, again, 8 teams have to make it, but it's not 8 good teams.
I got 5 good teams. I got 5.
You're being generous then.
I got the Raptors, Boston, and Sixers. That's good.
So we might as well go to the Central Division because we're both talking about Central Division teams now.
Yep. I got 2 in from Central.
I went 3 deep, but we'll go.
I got the Bucks and I got the Pacers. And that means I leave the Cavs, Bulls, and Pistons watching from the sideline.
So I think you're a little higher on the Bucks than I am still. I want to see it from them, be an elite team throughout a full season before I'm putting them there with the Celtics, Sixers, Raptors, or Pacers. Those are my 4.
Okay.
I mean, the Bucks are clearly the 5th team in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they'll be a 6th seed because the Wizards will get one of the top 4 when they win the Southeast, which is just absolute garbage. I do think the Cavs make it. Injuries can derail them pretty easy, but they've got enough talent in the East at least to make the playoffs.
I've watched a Kevin Love led team. I know he didn't have as much talent when he was in Minnesota, but it was his team, and he couldn't get them out of a paper bag.
No, I agree. But again, he had no talent around him when he was in Minnesota there. We're not even talking a little talent. We're not talking some talent. He had none.
Name me anybody on that team you're on double team.
On which team?
Cavs.
You don't have to double team anybody. But here's the thing. He actually has guys he can pass to who can shoot now. Who did he have in Minnesota?
They got to get open.
J.R. Smith can shoot himself open. I've seen J.R.
I
Smith
understand
do it.
Yeah, and J.R. Smith can go 7 for 7 or he can go 0 for 14.
Right. But again, I don't. Have you seen the rest of the East? They don't have a. There's no other team that has anybody that can go 7 for 7.
This is the one that I had trouble, but I went because I want to see them out. I think that's probably why I went with them out.
I have faith in him and Tristan Thompson and to be good enough. Not to be. They're not going to be competing for the division.
Right.
They're not going to be going to the conference finals even, but they're going to get in. They're good enough. Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith and Colin Sexton's played well. You know, Kyle Korver's still on that roster.
I don't trust Tristan Thompson to play well.
I think he'll be fine.
He's still thinking of Kardashians in his head.
I mean, whatever he's thinking about his head, he's still better than most of the players in the pivot spot in the East.
And I mean, I agree with you on the Bucks. That's what my note says. They're going to go as far as the Greek Freak takes them because there's nobody else on that team that scares you.
I wouldn't go nobody else.
Who else on the team scares you?
I think you're still on Chris Middleton a little short there. But
okay, let me put it this way: if he went down, if Giannis
Antetokounmpo,
if he went down, who on that team would you game plan again for?
Chris Middleton, 100%.
No, I don't think you game plan for anybody. I think you just let it play.
I think you're underselling how good Chris Middleton is because he plays with Giannis. It's some of those problems you run to when you have such transcendent talents that you forget how good some of these people are and you overlook them.
Okay. Before we get to the Bulls, I want to talk about Detroit because I know when we get to the Bulls, it's going to be a longer conversation.
I mean, Detroit I have is probably the 10th team in the East, but I also want to get back to the Bucks. You're trying to push me past the Bucks too far.
Okay. Sorry.
Are you forgetting how good and how deep that Bucks roster is?
Yeah, I'm not forgetting how deep they are. I'm just saying if he goes down, there's no superstar on that team.
Well, no, but how many teams have multiple superstars? A handful.
Right.
Tops.
That's what I'm saying.
So acting like they're one Giannis injury away from not being good is disingenuous. Chris Middleton is better than you're giving him credit for. You're forgetting they have Eric Bledsoe on their roster. You're forgetting Thon Maker is only entering his third season in the league, 7-footer who can swat shots in the rafters and make threes.
I'm the one that had him as in the top. I had 5 guarantees. You had 4. You're the one that left him out. I'm giving them their credit.
No,
I'm just saying when they get into the playoffs, they're only going to go as far as he takes them.
I didn't say that there were only 4 guaranteed playoff teams. I said they were a guaranteed playoff team. I said they weren't in the conference elite with the other 4.
Right.
I said you have a clear 4, then a possible 5th, then everybody else.
Which should agree. I mean, I have a little higher than you based on how we're making that comment. I mean, I realize how good they are, but if he goes down, you're going maybe from a 5 seat
to a 7 or 8
to 7, 8, and pretty much
and even then they still could lack on to 5. I mean, because the East is just that bad. They could. Chris Middleton could carry them to a 5 seed.
Yeah,
and they have a good bench still. I think you're forgetting they have quality bench pieces.
But no matter what, unless they add big piece to this, they're out by the second round. In the second round,
unless the Celtics have a ton of injuries again, and even then that's tough because Brad Stevens is just that good of a coach.
Right.
But the Pistons, I had as my 10th team. I think they're just such an interesting construction that they could easily be a playoff team, particularly in the East. You know, if the Heat don't get Butler, I think they make it, and then we have one team from the Southeast. Because you're still talking about a team that has Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, Stanley Johnson, who then doesn't have to do anything on offense, Reggie Jackson. I feel like I'm missing a piece. But anyway.
I mean, that's about it. But that's with my note. They got the 2 big guys, and they got Reggie Jackson, and they have, as you said, Johnson defensively. But when it comes down to it, Drummond, he's inside. I mean, he doesn't really have the great outside game yet.
Yeah, he is a traditional center. He is not the modern NBA center.
Blake Griffin.
He does have a perimeter shot now.
He does, but do I trust it?
No. Do I trust him to be healthy? No.
No. Reggie, healthy. When he's there, he's good. But again, health. So, I mean, it's an interesting team. This is one I actually had on the 8-9 for me. They might have been the 8. But I just don't know. It's Reggie Jackson and the two big guys. Nothing else on that team kind of gives me hope. You'll have guys that can shoot maybe a good game here, and then they go 0 for 50.
Right, but again, you just never. There are going to be teams that are going to be trading off pieces and parts throughout the season, so you just never know who's going to be available, what can be traded, what's up for grabs. Because let's say the Cavs suddenly aren't playing well. Well, now you have J.R. Smith with an expiring and Kyle Korver with an expiring.
Right.
Where both two shooters are up for grabs. Say you want another big, and the Bulls are every bit as bad as I expect them to be. Robin Lopez and Justin Holiday will be up for grabs, up to and including possibly Denzel Valentine will be up for grabs. So
who's the new coach in Detroit? I mean, I couldn't think of the man's name right this minute, and I didn't write it down, so I can't think of it. But I know they had a new coach, and I just don't know what that coach philosophy is with the two big guys. So that's kind of where I'm at with that one.
Dwayne Casey, so coach of the Raptors.
Well, yeah, he was more small guy oriented than.
Well, and also doesn't mind embracing that mid-range game that might work a little better with that Detroit lineup. He doesn't necessarily believe in the have to stand in the corners, shoot threes all, either go to the hoop or shoot the corner three all game kind of game. So he might work better for this roster than anything else they could have brought in.
So, I mean,
he's got the Raptors in the playoffs for years now. He's not a guy who's not accomplished in the least, but he also had a lot of talent in Toronto, so to pretend that he didn't would also be a little tricky.
All right, and one more. What's your take on the Pacers? I like their offseason moves.
I love their offseason moves. I don't like them. I love them. If there was one thing you saw in throughout the playoffs last year that they needed, was more shooting and secondary playmaking.
Mm-hmm.
What did they go get this offseason? With every single one of their acquisitions, they got either shooting or secondary playmaking, and in two of their big offseason acquisitions, they got both.
I was going to say Evans and McDermott.
Well, no. I was talking their draft pick, Holiday and Evans are the two that are shooters and playmakers. McDermott is just a shooter. Okay. He is not a playmaker. Let's not pretend. And he gives them a guy who they can play at a stretch 4 position with Sabonis and, Turner, when they want to go big, or he can play with Turner or Sabonis when they go small. So he gives them a lot.
I mean, they could put 5 on. They could put 5 on the floor that shoot.
Yeah, you could legitimately go Evans, Depot, McDermott, Turner, Sabonis. That's 5 that could shoot.
I mean, yeah. And what are you going to? I mean, he's going to do exactly what they did to the Cavs. Victor going to be on top. He's going to drive, and if you don't help, he's going to lay it in. And if you do help, he's going to hit the open guy.
Right, and so I think they'll be a fun team to watch. Again, how good are they going to be defensively? Will be an interesting thing to watch again. But they're not going anywhere. I think you saw that this is a team that's gonna be there for at least the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think the only piece they actually lost in the offseason was Stevenson. So, I mean, defensively, it should be about, except when McDermott takes to court.
Well, and they also weren't that good defensively last year. I mean, they were good enough.
Okay.
But they weren't great by any stretch of the imagination.
All right, let's get to Jason's favorite topic, the Chicago Bulls.
You mean the worst GM in the entire NBA, Gar Forman? If I have to hear from Bulls fans, which I am one, but much like I'm a Cubs fan who hates Cubs fans, I'm a Bulls fan who hates delusional Bulls fans. This team is not going to the playoffs. They are not competing for the playoffs. They are nowhere near the fucking playoffs. If you have any pipe dreams of this team being the 8th seed, you are smoking motherfucking crack mixed with meth, mixed with heroin. And you ought to just go jump off a motherfucking bridge. And you can timestamp this, date it, and remind me, because they're not making the playoffs. So please capture this frame and hold on to it, because they're not going to do it.
Why, if you are a Bulls fan, would you want them to be the 8th seed? You're going to play the Celtics. You can't match up. You're going to get bounced, and then you're going to be later in the you're going to be later in the draft.
Yeah. You're going to be out of the lot. So this is year 2 of a rebuild. Only only in Bulls land do people think you should rebuild an entire roster in 2 years when you didn't make a good trade with your superstar piece. You didn't do what the Pacers did when they traded Paul George, which is get a healthy, young, good player and a very young prospect that was good as well. They hit a home run when they got Oladipo and Sabonis, and people thought that was a bad trade at the time. But they forgot how good Oladipo could be when he was the guy. People get just absolutely suppressed by Westbrook and OKC, and it just kills some of them. But they were both guys on the come up. They were both fairly healthy. They have no injury records, and they both were versatile pieces. They weren't one-dimensional. Bulls, on the other hand, make a trade for 3 one-dimensional pieces, and they think they hit on all 3. We have no clue how these 3 guys play together. They have played so little together, and when they have played very poorly because Chris Dunn has to have the ball in his hands. Zach LaVine has to have the ball in his hands. And Lauri Markkanen, who's your best shooter, needs the ball to shoot at some point, and he's not getting, when he's the third person to touch there, it's crazy. Then, when you go to the draft, you have the 7th pick. You're not in the top 3, so you're not getting an elite talent. And instead of taking a risk and saying, I'm going to take a high upside flyer here, win or lose, I'm going to take a big swing here. I'm going to Javi Baez the shit out of this. I am not getting cheated on this 3-2 fastball up at my letters. I'm taking my biggest swing. Nope. You went with the, I'm going to choke up and just slap it the other way. Wendell Carter, who is not that good. I'm going to point out, he went for 7 points and 5 rebounds in the preseason and looked lost defensively. This is no longer the Summer League where you're playing 80% of the guys who won't make a G League roster. G League roster. Most of those guys in the Summer League will not play in the G League this year, okay? That's why Wendell Carter looked good. Remember, he was the second best player on his team at Duke. If you are going to be a superstar in the NBA, usually, not always, but usually you are the best player on your college roster. It's not always the case. There are some cases where that does not hold true, but he is not a guy who shows off elite athleticism at any level. He is a guy who is a classic defensive center, who has a little more range. And again, words I do not want to hear for ceiling upside at 7 are Al Horford. I love Al Horford. I think he is the kind of glue guy that makes a good team great. You know what Al Horford was not in Atlanta? A team who made a bad team good. He needed other pieces around him before that bad team became good. And he's needed pieces in Boston before that team could be good. You have to surround guys like that with shooters. You have to surround guys like that with perimeter defenders. You know what the Bulls don't have? Anybody who can play defense on the fucking perimeter. They have Chris Dunn and then nobody. You know who's looked even more lost than Wendell Carter this preseason?
Jabari Parker?
I was going to go Chandler Hutchinson, but yes, Jabari Parker looked awful too.
I mean, Hutchinson, I at least give him, he was lower draft pick.
But again, there were other higher upside options available. You do not, in a rebuild, draft a 22, 23-year-old senior from college.
No, what you don't do is tell him on draft day, I guarantee you if you hit this spot, we will take you, and then back your fucking self in and have to take him.
Well, first off, you never have to take him. That's your own fault if you believe the promise as a player. That's the Bulls' fault for honoring the promise. They wouldn't be the first team to go back on a kind of promise like that. But, Gar Forman has to have his word be his bond, which is why his team is a dumpster fire. Here's the funny thing at this point. I know the Wolves made the playoffs last year, but has a superstar trade ever looked worse for both teams? Like, wouldn't the Wolves be a lot happier with Lauri Markkanen and Chris Dunn at this point and have let Zach LaVine walk? Than with what they've got now? A very angry Jimmy Butler about to blow up a core that now has no promise going forward and has ruined their current present with never seeing a ceiling that was championship caliber. And the Bulls, I'm sure, would love nothing more. Because now they're also at a point where they're talking, well, we've got to tie Bobby Portis up because he's looking like a solid 6-man, which he is. That's what you don't do in year 2 of a rebuild.
Tie up your 6th man?
Tie up your 6th man on salary cap space. It's just not a valuable piece at that point to you. He's a valuable piece to a playoff team. Let him play some while Markkanen is hurt. get you a first-round pick for him.
And
Again, why you signed Jabari Parker is the most befuddling decision to me of the entire offseason. You could sit here and talk to me about trying to acquire more lottery tickets, more chances to acquire superstar talent. He has had 3 ACL issues.
Well,
he has never been a competent NBA defender. He is a marginal NBA scorer. Pretending basketball is better at analytics than football is. But they've still got a long way to go because you've got a GM who's clearly still in love with points per game. It's the reason he matched Zach LaVine's $20 million a year, basically. It's the reason he offered Jabari Parker $20 million a year. Not realizing that they're both net negative players. Neither one of them are going to help you win basketball games, no matter what they do.
I have a question. Could the Jabari Parker be Theo Epstein signing these pitchers to 1-year deals and then turning and trading them? If we fucking play like crap, like we both expect him to play like crap, and he turns and burns, even if he gets middle first or late first round pick back for him, that's not a bad thing. I mean, you spent $20 million. Okay, but he only has a 1-year contract. It's a team option for the next year.
Here's the problem. He would actually have to play well on both sides of the ball. If he does that, you're not going to be that bad.
Well, okay, what happens if you get a second round pick? Somebody takes him for a second round pick.
Not at $20 million because there's not many teams. There's no teams with cap space left. So you're going to have to eat $20 million coming back. The Bulls have made it pretty clear that they don't want to tie up any more of their money going forward other than what they've already got sunk into Cristiano Feliciano. No, again, genius signing there because you had to rush out and beat the market on him. And
Omar Sheik,
who's not even technically really on their roster. He's just taking up cap space for the next 2 years. So they're not going to take back any long-term money. And that's part of what killed them is they didn't want to help facilitate any of these trades, although they could have been part of the Carmelo Anthony deal when they had that space and picked up an asset. But they didn't want to be part of that because they wanted, to take another bite at this apple instead of acquiring assets. There's no group more unqualified to lead a rebuild. And again, they've got to lead 2 now, realistically. And they've failed both times. Now this is number 3. And when they fail again, is this baseball style 3 strikes and they're out, hopefully? Finally?
Well, I have a question. If you were the GM, I could see you facilitating this trade, and you could still possibly do this trade. Minnesota takes Parker. The Bulls get some kind of draft compensation in between them and Houston, and the Bulls take back 2 of the what's-nuts that expire anyway. Gordon and
No, you're not getting Gordon.
No,
Minnesota wants a wing player, so they'll have to. They
can't fucking Gordon too. I mean,
but they don't. Houston has to find some way to take more money. You would be taking the only thing the Bulls could be taking back is Gorgie Dieng. They're not going to be the third team in that trade. They would have been more able to facilitate had they left themselves the $20 million in flexible space for these kind of moves instead of tying it up, which was a terrible decision. In a long line of terrible decisions by #FireGarPax.
When I looked at this roster, I'm breaking it down to see how I'd have them ranked. The first thing I thought, well, man, this would be a pretty good team to take over in 2K and see if you could rebuild and get out of these contracts. And it'd be a challenging team because, I mean, there's a lot of shitty contracts, and you'd have to send some first-round picks to get rid of this crap.
I mean, you don't really have a lot of shitty contracts. You have one really bad contract. Because there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract.
Well, you got a Sheik.
Well, but a Sheik you can stretch next year because he's only got a partial guarantee for that last year.
Okay.
And you can stretch him through the stretch provision and make that over 3 years, and it's not so bad.
But I was thinking this year, I mean, you have...
Feliciano's contract is still bad, even though that after this year there'll be 2 years left, so it's not as bad, but it's still bad.
You have your favorite Zachs.
You had to bring up Zach LaVine, who somehow Bulls fans and sport writers have convinced him after his preseason of playing nobody when nobody plays defense in the preseason. Let's remind you of this. Nobody plays defense in the preseason. Veterans barely even play. Like they're talking about the Bulls playing the Pelicans. Anthony Davis, Mirotic, and Drew Holiday did not even play in that game. Okay? They did not really play in that game. So to pretend that you saw anything useful and meaningful, oh my God, he looks so good going to the rim. Great, that's his one dimension. That is what he does. And then he will continue to be streaky as hell from 3 and not consistent. He will be terrible handling the ball. He will get assists, but he will have just as many turnovers. which he had in the preseason, by the way. 3.4 assists, 3.6 turnovers per game. Not what I would call numbers you want to see from a $20 million player. Guess what he still didn't do in the preseason after saying he was going to get better? Play defense, because he doesn't give a shit about defense. It is all an effort, and if he would have cared, he would have done it already. You have a franchise cornerstone who should not be a franchise cornerstone. He should be a sixth man. That is what his skill set is. You have a sixth man that you are paying $20 million to, and you are talking about paying similar money to another sixth man. And now you will be in a rebuild where you are going to lock yourself into being in that 6 through 10 seed area. So you're in that murky middle all over again with no cap flexibility and no future. Way to go, hashtag Fireguard Packs. You've done it again.
So let me ask you this. If Reinsdorf takes his head off the baseball diamond for a minute and looks at his
never going to happen.
And looks at his team and just says, you know what? I'm tired of Fred, I'm tired of Gar, and I'm tired of Pax. I'm going to clean house this year, after this year. Who do you put in them spots?
I don't know if you can fairly judge Fred Hoiberg for anything at this point. What are you going to judge him for? He's never been given a decent team to work with. Not once. I mean, I have a hunch you clean house.
Right.
But it's just tough. I would love to hate on Fred Hoiberg because they've been so bad, but he's never been given a quality team because they finally move on from the Derrick Rose era and Luol Deng and these guys, Joe Kim Noah, who have all aged and starting to wear down, and you have Jimmy Butler ready to be your number one, and you have Mirotic, who you've put a lot of years and a lot of hope into to be your number two and be a guy who can space, and you panic. And you hang on to Taj Gibson, who doesn't fit your timeline or playing system, and keep forcing him to be your starter. You bring in Rondo because you don't think you can add Dwayne Wade as you're trying to get to a salary floor. Instead of just paying that, then you do sign Dwayne Wade, so now you have 4 guys who can't shoot or don't shoot well, and Jimmy Butler, who's your best three-point shooter when you add Robin Lopez into that mix, and Mirotic coming off the bench, who, guess what? For whatever reason, when he comes off the bench, not the most engaged player. When he starts, he is another monster because he has more touches, he's more in rhythm, and he plays way better. He's almost a 20-10 guy as a starter, and he provides the spacing you would need. So if they don't panic, then and stay the course with Butler and Mirotic and hang on to Lopez and then add some shooters around that, that could have been a good team for Fred Hoiberg. But they didn't, so you don't know. Then you get last year's garbage when they finally trade Butler and Mirotic, and now and finally got rid of Gibson, and now you have a team that's so young and fits so poorly together.
They really don't fit Fred's offense either. Fred's offense is more of a 5-guy spread and shoot offense, and I mean, who do you have in there that could do that?
Well, and even when you trade Taj Gibson, how bad was that trade? Let's trade Taj Gibson and Doug McDermott for Cameron Payne and a second-round pick. We're going to take a flyer. You're taking a flyer, and it was awful.
Wait, Cameron Payne's the only jump shot that looks worse than Balls did in L.A.
And yet, at least Balls goes in.
I don't know.
Cameron Payne doesn't go in. Cameron Payne can't stay healthy. The one thing Cameron Payne can do is get the ball at the court quickly and play with some pace, but other than that, he brings nothing to the table. So that looks terrible. That's why I don't trust them to do anything good with Denzel Valentine or Justin Holiday or Robin Lopez this year. They'll probably hang on to him again because they'll be close to competing because that's how bad the East is. But this team caps out right around where Vegas has them, somewhere between 26 and 28 wins. That's what this team is. That's who they're going to be this year. They keep thinking, well, we were so good last year for that stretch, for a small stretch there. Yeah, you mean when Mirotic was balling out of his mind and carrying your offense?
And then you traded him?
Yeah. Wisely, by the way. I mean, at that point...
Yeah, I mean, you had to. I mean, I understand you had to. But, and on the Butler side, I mean, if he came and said, you know what, when my contract's up, I'm gone anyway. I'm not signing here. Which, again, to me, would be really hard if I came to you and say, here's your 5-year, $200 million contract. Was he really going to walk away for that for a 4-year, 120, is it?
Something like that. But no, he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But he never said he was going anywhere to the Bulls either.
Yeah, you don't know what was publicly said, but we don't know what was said
I think
agent to GMs.
I think he wanted
to be paid. I know that.
He wanted to be paid. I think he wanted a coach that was capable of winning now, which with that roster construction, nobody was. I don't know what he was thinking, what he was demanding there.
He wanted Thibodeau back.
No, that wasn't going to happen.
I mean, that's what he didn't like when Thibodeau got fired or whatever happened there. He didn't like it. He loved Thibodeau. I mean, he went to the team with Thibodeau, and he sees what's happening in Minnesota, and he sees Thibodeau's very pissed off and not happy with this team, and there's nothing he could do about it because the team pieces that he wants to trade to get people he want, the owner's like, nah.
Well, that was a terrible hiring by the Timberwolves. Timberwolves absolutely hired the wrong coach for where their team was in that process. And that made things worse when they gave him player personnel control as well. Mm-hmm. Again, most good coaches' biggest enemy is themselves as a GM. Doc Rivers hurt himself as a GM. Tom Thibodeau hurt himself as a GM.
Even though I believe if he was bold as a GM, he could have done better than what we currently have.
No. Coaches cannot be good GMs in the NBA.
So you're saying Garpax is better than Thibodeau GM?
Yes.
So that means Thibodeau's the worst GM.
At the moment, yeah, I would say.
Okay.
Hashtag Fire Garpax has a longer track record of being garbage.
Okay.
But no coach is a good GM in the NBA because you cannot study. You do not notice the trends. You are so focused on making yourself a winner as a coach, you don't see where your team's at in its progress. It's not like the NFL where there are some guys who can be coach GMs, and even that's pretty rare in today's NFL. Because even in Patriots, they've had a player personnel guy the whole time with
Correct.
Bill Belichick. That's really been helping make a lot of his calls for him. He has input, but Bill Parcells is probably the last really free reign GM coach, and of course there's an exception to the rule. But
you get the one in Dallas.
No.
He's the GM. He is the coach. He might be in the box.
He's the owner as well.
He's all three, but I don't care what you say. He's the coach too.
I would say he's not the coach. I think even he would do a better job than Jason Garrett's doing at this point. But no, I don't think. I think Thibodeau has been his own worst enemy. I think Garpax has been terrible for a decade now. Like that's the problem is they've had a decade and they've been bad for it. Decade plus now.
Can we just? Cause you said Paxson, you wouldn't mind if he's the GM. Can we not promote Gar? I mean, that's what seems Reinsdorf does. He doesn't really fire people. He just promotes them to positions where they have no ability to do anything.
Well, that's
Kenny Williams.
Well, that's kind of what they did with Paxson when they were getting ready to fire him when he was the GM. Because that's right when Derrick Rose finally got good. They were getting ready to fire him because that team had been meandering for a while. And then Foreman was under him, and they promoted kind of them both up the ladder.
Oh, okay.
Instead of firing them. But you're not really going to... they need to just fire them and clear house. It's time.
But he doesn't do that. I mean...
No, he doesn't. That's the problem. He's cheap ass. But dude, you're about to die. Spend some money and be good before you go. Try to be good one more time in the post Michael Jordan.
He might outlive both of us. You don't know that.
I mean, I don't know a lot, but I know that much.
I mean, there is an owner in Chicago that's older than most stadiums in the United States.
Oh, God, Virginia McCaskey.
Uh-huh.
Hey, she dusted off her checkbook for you this year. You shouldn't be mad.
No, I'm not mad, but I'm just saying she is what? Somewhere between 96 and 100?
Maybe look now just because I want to know. Because she is old as dirt.
I mean, her kids look like they're in their 70s.
They are in their 70s.
And I mean, she's just been there forever. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. He might outlive us both. I mean, he has enough money to...
She is 95.
95?
She was born in 1923. Things you shouldn't see as owners of NFL franchises. Holy cow. But yeah, he might live a while, but I have no hope. I have no faith. This team is poorly constructed. Again, they have no extra future assets coming in. They only have their picks going forward. They have picks. They can get picks. They're not going to be high picks. As I say, Lopez and Holiday are getting you second rounders. Valentine's getting you a second rounder at this point. He's not panned out that well. Plus, you're probably going to need him to hang on to him anyways to be your second unit point guard because Cameron Payne is that bad. Like, you just can't keep swinging and missing. I mean, you can't
use Nwambe or what?
Nwabe they didn't bring back.
Oh wow, he actually showed some talent.
He's in Cleveland.
Oh wow,
he's another guy who helps Cleveland's case. They brought a guy. No, they got Blakely, but I ain't handing him the ball as a point guard. This fucker will shoot every time up the floor. It's like, no, it's in my hands. I'm supposed to shoot. That's what I do. No, that would have been like making Allen Iverson a second unit point guard late in his career. People tried. It didn't work out well. But no. So, no, yeah, I think Valentine will be your second unit point guard going forward. But it's frustrating. I have no high hopes for Zach LaVine. I know everybody's like, but he'll be fully healthy and have a full training camp. And yada, yada. Zach LaVine. He's not a superstar. He's never going to be a superstar.
Prove him wrong, Zach. That's all I can say is prove him wrong.
No, good. Again, take this clip, send it to him, let him play it over and over again. You play no defense. You are way too streaky of a shooter. You turn the ball over way too goddamn much. You are not a superstar. You will never be a superstar. Zach LaVine, you are a sixth man. That is your role in the NBA. Be glad you got paid by some dumb GMs for that. First off, the Kings offering you the contract, and then the Bulls being dumb enough to match it. And please put this on his billboard every day so maybe he'll actually stay in the gym and learn how to stand in front of somebody because he makes makes me yearn for the days of Jalen Rose Ole defense.
Ole.
Because at least Jalen Rose pretended to try. Zach LaVine doesn't even pretend to try most of the time to stay in front of somebody.
I can't make an argument against that.
And I have the Celtics winning the East this year. Unless the Raptors make a trade to add another piece. I have
the Celtics winning it, healthy Celtics.
And, yeah, again, healthy. I'm not predicting injuries or anything in this. Yeah, I went out on one limb and predicted Jimmy Butler from the Timberwolves to the Heat getting eventually done. But other than that, I'm not going to get into the predicting trades or predicting injuries or health. And like I said, I have the Warriors winning it all. I think you'd be foolhardy not to think that the Warriors get their three-peat and fourth in 5 years.
I have the Warriors getting in the West, but I have the Celtics in 7.
Oh, that's a brave one. Now, again, the Celtics are probably the one team that matches up well with them defensively and has enough, versatility to make it interesting. But I still just think any team that has probably the three best players in the series, or two of the three at least, 3 out of the 4 for sure, is hard to argue with them winning because KD and Steph Curry are better than anybody the Celtics have. Klay Thompson is arguably as good as Kyrie Irving. So, again, they have 2, possibly 3, or 3 out of 4. Depending on how you want to look at it. That in the NBA wins you every day, every series. We saw it with...
I believe Kerr will be outcoached. I like Kerr as a coach, but he's not Brad Stevenson.
No, he's not. He's not Brad Stevens. Not even close. Stevens. Not Stevenson. But... Again, I think it'll be fun to watch. It'd be more interesting than the Cleveland Warriors because although I don't know if I'll get to ever watch J.R. Smith dribble out a tie game right after he got the rebound right at the rim. Like even if you're winning by 1 at that point, I almost would have told J.R. Smith just put that back in the hoop and go up 3. Worst case scenario, they tie. Just like when in doubt, put the ball in the hoop when you're that close and that open. So I think that'll wrap this up. We're right at an hour basically, so I think that's a good number for NBA preseason. So anybody who wants to make some money, go to mybookie.ag. Use the promo code PAT. They will match your initial deposit 100 to 100%, and bet the under on the Bulls record because it's going to definitely be the under.
Match your up to 100%.
Your initial deposit. So whatever you deposit in your account, they will double it for you.
Is there a certain limit though? That's what I'm asking.
No, there's not.
Okay.
Now that I've been told, I would guess probably $1,000. Most of these cap off there.
Okay.
When you go, it'll tell you what the limit is. Anyways, again, mybookie.ag, promo code PAT, and bet the under. Hammer that under for the Bulls record. They're going under. I have full faith in it. You can also hammer the Warriors winning the championship, although that's not going to pay much. So They're not going to do much good. Like I said, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and YouTube at JASONBANICKI. Like the Facebook page, Off Base Sports Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Off Base Sports 1. On Instagram, Off Base Sports. Subscribe, rate, review, share with your friends, families, neighbors, people you don't even like. Walk into random Apple stores and Best Buys and subscribe on the podcast apps, on the demo phones.
And if you don't like the podcast, you know what? And you want to torture somebody,
share
they can listen to it.
Share it with them too. Like, here, this is going to be off-base torture for you. You want to listen to somebody badmouth the Bulls every other episode? Here you go. Go nuts. So, thank you, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.